This episode of Run It Back Philly is brought to you by Future Fitness app. If you want to get in shape and stay in shape, I got something for you. Go to future.co/runitback and try Future Fitness app for free for 30 days. Future Fitness app pairs you with a real-life personal trainer who creates a fitness program and a diet program for you and then keeps in contact with you through the app. It's a real person helping you get your life together. A strong fitness equals a strong mind. So go to future.co/runitback. Try it free for 30 days. Let's get into the business.
Run it back, Philly. No frauds, no fanboys, no intros.
Run It Back Nation, what is good? It is your boy DJ Ace with Run It Back Philly. No frauds, no fanboys, no intros. Al, go gang. I need you to do your thing on the video. I'm up here multiple times a day. We're live streaming games. We're making post-game reactions. We're making other videos. We're doing all kinds of stuff. All I ask for all of this work and all of this free content is that you pay me by hitting that little thumbs up. That's all I ask. And put something in the comments. Your opinion or just your favorite emoji. It doesn't matter. It's all for the algo. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new or you watch these and you're not subscribed because that's fraudulent behavior. And if your notifications aren't working, turn them off and turn them back on. Let's get into the business, man. The Philadelphia 76ers beat the Detroit Pistons last night, as was expected, because the Detroit Pistons are in the Wembanyama sweepstakes. They're not trying to win games at this point. Cade Cunningham had surgery. Marvin Bagley, not that he's of any significance, but he had surgery also. So the Wembanyama sweepstakes are on. It's between the Detroit Pistons, the Hornets, and the Rockets. So they're not trying to win games. Also, Scoot Henderson is up there and looks like a little, 6'2", 200-pound army tank dunking on kids' heads. You know what I mean? So I'm actually torn between who I would take, Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson, but that's another topic that we could probably put in another video. But the Detroit Pistons aren't trying to win games, all right? That's the point I was making. The Detroit Pistons are also the place in the NBA where players go to live out their last couple of years. The Detroit Pistons are basically the nursing home of the NBA. Do you call it quits right now? Do you pull the plug? Or do you go to a nursing home, live another 5 years of kind of a pointless existence with a 22-year-old nurse, wiping your you-know-what? That's that's what the Detroit Pistons are of the NBA. Players could call it quits now, or you can just go get paid by the Detroit Pistons for another couple of years, Also, the former Sixers on the team is kind of trippy to me. Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel. I thought I was going to see Ish Smith for a second just because of that. And Jeremy Grant went there and got paid and got the hell out. So shout out to him for that. But that's the Detroit Pistons, and they're not trying to win, so it is what it is. But there was something that happened in this game that is of some significance. And it was Paul Reed proving once again that Glenn Rivers has no idea what he's doing or how to develop young talent or how to take advantage of young athletic players on an NBA roster. All right. Doc Rivers in this game was forced to battle himself because his favorite center, 40-year-old PJ Tucker, was out with a non-COVID related illness. What could that illness have been? I'll tell you what that illness was. Is that PJ Tucker is literally sick of playing 40 minutes at center. All right? So he said, I've had enough of this. There's rumors that PJ Tucker in Miami or in Houston said that he doesn't like playing center when they went small ball. So Doc Rivers runs PJ Tucker at center for a couple games, and he gets physically ill because of it. Anyway, so PJ's out. Joel Embiid's out. Who knows when we're getting him back with the rolled ankle, hopefully soon. But, take your time. None of these games actually matter. Nothing actually matters until probably the end of February. It is what it is. So Glenn Rivers was forced to battle himself. He was forced to play a player that he absolutely hates playing, and nobody understands why except for him. But he started Montrezl Harrell at center, okay? And Montrezl Harrell didn't have a terrible game. Montrezl Harrell had 8 points in the first 8 minutes of the game. Montrezl Harrell gives you offense. We already know that. Montrezl averaged 16 points a game for his career without an outside jump shot because he's great around the rim. He has great footwork. He has great post presence and post awareness and post moves very close to the rim. And that's what he was doing in this game, off the bat. A lot of his points came from James Harden setting him up and giving him easy buckets. But Montrezl Harrell can't defend the rim. He can't. And neither can PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker wasn't in this game, but Montrezl Harrell can't defend the rim. So, a couple of plays that I just noticed right off the first quarter, a couple of wide open layups for the Detroit Pistons. And it happened again in the third quarter with Montrezl Harrell. He doesn't rotate, and when he does rotate, he can't get off the ground and really defend the rim. So Paul Reed comes in the game. And by the way, for those of you that constantly get in the comments and tell me, well, I don't know why you're so high on Paul Reed. Paul Reed stinks. I don't think Paul Reed's the answer. Nobody's claiming that Paul Reed is Joel Embiid. Nobody's claiming that Paul Reed is a superstar. Nobody's saying that. What we're saying is this basketball team has had deficiencies at the backup center position ever since Andre Drummond left. All right? This basketball team gets absolutely decimated as soon as Joel Embiid steps off the floor. This is one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, one of the worst teams defending the rim in the league, and one of the worst transition defense teams in the league because of the backup center minutes and because sometimes Joel Embiid takes a couple of quarters off. All we're saying is Paul Reed is clearly the best option at backup center. That's all we're saying. That's all we're saying. Paul Reed, in this game, in 24 minutes, I need you to really listen to this, bro. I need you to really, really listen to this. This is a player that Doc Rivers does not like playing. This is a player that Doc Rivers was forced to play in the Toronto Raptors series, and they won that series, and he played every single minute of backup center in a playoff series against an athletic basketball team. And then he starts this season not playing him at all. And then he plays him. Paul plays good, has a bad game. Doc benches him again for another 2 months and starts playing PJ Tucker at center. So finally, there's an illness or an injury or whatever, and Glenn is forced to play Paul Reed. And in the game where Glenn is forced to play Paul Reed, in 24 minutes, he goes for 16 points, 12 rebounds, 3 steals. But the biggest stat is 8 offensive rebounds. 8. This team, the Philadelphia 76ers, are dead last in the NBA in offensive rebounding. And they're towards the bottom of the NBA in opponents' offensive rebounding. It's clear as day you should be playing an athletic backup center who can rebound like Paul Reed. 24 minutes. He had 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 steals, and 8 offensive rebounds. I mean, come on, bro. This ain't rocket science. It's just that it only happens when Doc is forced to play him. A lot like Tyrese Maxey, his rookie season. Or his second season when Ben Simmons quit and he was forced to play him. Paul Reed immediately comes in and defends the rim. Has a couple of forced missed shots at the rim immediately. Right after the center that started the game was giving up wide open layups. He grabs 2 offensive rebounds in the first 4 minutes of the game. In the first 4 minutes of the game, he had 4 points and 2 offensive rebounds. In the second quarter, just a play that I wrote down, he had an offensive rebound off a George Niang miss and kicked it back out to George Niang for a 3. What's that called? That's called second chance points. Those second chance points don't happen if he's not on the floor in a game where you don't have Joel Embiid. Paul Reed, once again, proves that Glenn Rivers is wrong. And I didn't watch the post-game press conference. I know they probably asked Glenn Rivers about Paul Reed. He doesn't like being asked about Paul Reed. You know, the Paul Reed victory tour. We're not going to go on a Paul Reed victory tour. Glenn Rivers is wrong once again. And I have a lot of fun every single time Glenn Rivers is wrong. This is obvious stuff here. This is obvious stuff. But shout out to Paul Reed for finally getting minutes because of an illness to PJ Tucker and playing a fantastic game and having 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 offensive rebounds and 3 steals. Shout out to Paul Reed. This is a Paul Reed victory tour. And inevitably, Glenn Rivers will bench him again. And we'll continue this cycle of chaos. All right? Outside of that, look, James Harden in this game had a triple-double, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists, a quiet triple-double. He was patient, methodical all game, playing that old man game that he plays. Didn't look like a superstar or anything, just looked like a really, really efficient facilitator. And he had a lot of drives in the paint where, he kind of bullied Bogdanovich and those guys, used his size to either get to the rim, finish at the rim, drive, draw the defense, kick it out, drive, draw the defense, kick it to the roll man, or get to the free throw line. So shout out to James Harden for a patient, quiet, methodical 20-point triple-double. Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey slowly coming back. Tyrese had 23 points in this game, and he didn't shoot the ball well. He was short on a lot of threes, I did notice. He was 8 for 18 from the floor and 2 for 9 from three-point range, and he had 23 points. So a couple of those threes go in. We're talking about a 30-point game for Tyrese Maxey. He had an up and under missed layup, too. A couple of those shots go in. We're talking about a 30-point game from Tyrese Maxey. So, in just 3-4 games back, after sitting out for a month and a half with the fractured foot, Tyrese Maxey's getting back in the groove and getting back to that number 2 option level that I personally believe he is and has to be for this basketball team to work. Joel Embiid, number 1. I need Tyrese Maxey to be a bucket at the shooting guard position, and then I need James Harden to just continue to play his 20-point triple-double, 25-point triple-double style of basketball, slow, methodical facilitator. And keep trying on defense, James. We like when you keep trying on defense. So Maxey had an array of shots, drives, mid-range floaters, you know what he does, and some quick trigger threes. And again, he didn't shoot great from 3, but it was great to see him get back into that groove. George Niang gave you 15 points off the bench. That's what George Niang does. Another thing I want to talk about is Matisse Thybulle. The Philadelphia 76ers moved to 9-0 when Matisse Thybulle plays more than 20 minutes. Do you think that's a coincidence? No, that is not a coincidence. That is because Matisse Thybulle causes absolute havoc for the other team. Matisse Thybulle and Paul Reed together cause absolute havoc for the other team. Matisse Thybulle, in 22 minutes, had 5 points and 5 steals. It finally seems like Matisse Thybulle got all of Daniel House's minutes. I was screaming that at the beginning of this season. What the hell is Daniel House? Why did we sign him? Why did people talk about us signing him? Why did let's get all the former Houston Rockets because that's what's in? No. So Eastwood's right again. Matisse Thybulle should have been playing Daniel House's minutes from the beginning of the season. Once again, me, a random guy in his YouTube attic studio, knows more than Glenn Rivers. That's not braggadocious. It's not hard to know more than Glenn Rivers. Because the guy's just a stubborn dinosaur with blinders on and sees nothing but the ideas that are in his own head, which are wrong most of the time and most of his career. Just ask Paul George, just ask Pat Beverly, just ask Greg Popovich. Anyway, in 22 minutes, Thybulle had 5 points and 5 steals. Even the Detroit Pistons broadcaster said at one point, here's another swipe by Thybulle. What else is new? I love the Paul Reed, Matisse Thybulle lineups. It's absolute havoc. We're talking about 8 offensive rebounds and 8 steals between those two players. On a team that is bad at rebounding, lacks youth and athleticism, and transition defense, and points off of turnovers, all of the nitty-gritty things that you need young athletes for in the NBA. Paul Reed and Matisse Thybulle give you those things. When you play them both together, it's pure chaos, and it needs to happen more. I don't know if we have faith that Glenn Rivers will do that, but it needs to happen more. All right, last thing, Tobias Harris had a meh game. Played against his former team. I guess that's something that, he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, so he was trying to force up some shots. I saw about 25 of those, 23-second back down, turnaround fadeaways that hurt your team more than help your team. He had 12 points in the game. Realistically, you should have traded him when he was trade value Toby. When he was dropping a couple of 30-plus point games, you should have traded him immediately that day or the next day or that night. So Tobias Harris is back to just being regular old Tobias Harris, who has the most overblown contract in the NBA and is now impossible to trade once again. But that's my assessment on Tobias Harris. It was meh. Like, he's just a guy. He's just there, And then sometimes he dribbles out the shot clock and shoots a turnaround fadeaway, which if it goes in, cool, I guess. But if it doesn't, it doesn't really help you either way. That's how I feel about it. I don't know. Some of you guys disagree with me on my Tobias Harris takes, but I have to tell you that I don't care at all. The fourth quarter lineup of Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, and Paul Reed. I love that lineup. You got youth and athleticism on the floor. You got your two defenders that can cause havoc for the other team. You got scorers on the floor. You got a ball handler and pick and roll runner in Shake Milton. I love that lineup. I think if I had to go with the ideal starting lineup for this basketball team, call me crazy. Call me absolutely insane. But I'm going James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, Paul Reed, Joel Embiid. That's what I'm going for the starting lineup of this basketball team. If I was the coach right now and there was no such thing as Joshua Harris calling you and making sure you're playing all the guys that are getting paid the most, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, Paul Reed, and Joel Embiid. That's what I would do. Call me crazy if you want to. But anyway, Sixers win. That's my take on it. Thank you for tuning in. It's the Paul Reed Victory Tour once again. Don't hold your breath. Glenn's going to bench him again, and we're going to do this whole cycle over again. And the backup center minutes, the fact that this team is bad at rebounding, bad at transition defense, bad at defending the rim, and is really only like 16th in the NBA in points per game, is going to kill us in the playoffs. And it's all Glenn Rivers' fault, but there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to see it through until he inevitably gets fired at the end of this season. Y'all have a good day, man. Hit the like button and all that stuff, man. Peace.